most people, when they think of codependency, they think of a relationship dynamic where there's two roles. One person is the giver that sacrifices everything for the other person that's the taker. And giving is beautiful, by the way, guys, but it's the kind of giving where you're never taken into account. So it's an extremity. So you're giving and the other person is taking and never giving. And it creates this bond. And the bond can be not just in romantic relationships, it can be with a parent and child, it can be with coworkers, siblings. Something else that people say is codependents often give up their identity, their hobbies, their values, their goals to please someone else. And when I was first understanding and going through the fact that I was doing that, it was a little painful. So I really want to stress like any information that comes up and your body's like, ooh, that I don't like that, that feels uncomfortable, is a sign for you to support that piece that's coming up because it is painful. When I looked at how much I amputated of who I was. If it was expressed physically, I probably wouldn't have a body left. How much I amputated to try to make someone else happy. And the reason I did that, and what we're really going to learn today, we're going to understand that it's basically all because of a trauma response. I say that because I don't know about you guys, but when I first was like delving into codependency and seeing certain patterns in myself, it was kind of shaming. Like the term itself made me feel guilty. Like I'm bad, I'm needy, there's something wrong with me, I'm causing a problem in a relationship. So I'm hoping we can remove that stigma and really see things in a different way so we can have compassion for ourselves because the only reason that we fell into that had to do with trauma. So for example, if a child grows up with one or more members that either has addiction problems, mental health problems like NPD, BPD, or even sometimes unhealed CPTSD, by the way, then in that environment, we can develop codependent strategies or traits as a way of coping with the instability that those dynamics create. So, for example, in an environment that's unstable, there's not a sense of safety inside. So, as a result, how could we possibly have developed, right, an inner felt sense of safety or even an inner healthy self-image when we were so busy? I don't know about you guys, but I was so busy trying to find the secret formula as a kid to make my parents happy. How could I possibly have allowed my authenticity to flourish in that kind of an environment? And so I say that so that we can give ourselves grace and even send some compassion to the pieces of ourselves that are still hurting from that. Like really notice, like check in with your body right now. As we're talking about this, I'm curious if anyone notices like a sensation coming up in their body. Let me know in the chat box. Stomach in a knot, stomach churning, emotions, guilt, chest tightening. This is what I was talking about earlier, how the body somatically time travels. To me, when I think of codependency and all the different traits that come up that expose it or show that we have it, to me, I feel like codependency is an attempt to find safety, self-worth, and identity outside of us because we don't have it here. And it's not because we're deficient or less than, or there's something wrong with us. And we're going to go more into it right now. So I want to really kind of explain and normalize why we go outside of ourselves for safety, right? Because sometimes we might be like, but other people don't, so they're better. No, they had a different childhood, a different experience. So let me bring up what I put together. So we're all born dependent, right? All of us. Every baby needs a caregiver. Can't take care of themselves. There's no shame in that. Children up until the first 7 years, right? They're all operating with their subconscious. The subconscious is the body and our emotions. So we have emotions. It's normal. If we had good enough parenting, then when we had an emotion, our parents helped us by co-regulating. Oh, you're sad. I see you. It's normal to be sad. I'm here. We had that emotional support with our emotions. As a result, We felt what it was like to have that regulation and that safety brought back into us. And then we internalize it, right? It's how we learn. Then that becomes our way of treating ourselves, being with ourselves. When we have emotions, we internalize how we were spoken to, how we were emotionally supported. And as a result, we grow into independence. Doesn't mean we never co-regulate. Co-regulation is beautiful. It just means that we can co-regulate and self-regulate, right? We can be reminded of the safety in us by co-regulating with somebody else, also knowing that we still have that inside. I didn't get that kind of parenting. I don't know about you guys, but this is what I got. I was born dependent just like everyone else. I had all the feelings like anyone else, but I didn't get co-regulation. When I was feeling my feelings, I was either ignored, shamed, blamed, made to feel responsible for the other person's feelings, not mine. Mine didn't matter. Maybe made to feel bad for mine, maybe unworthy, and there was emotional abandonment, right? Now that's an extreme. By the way, codependency isn't just with extremes. It can take place even if we had loving parents, but maybe they had to work a lot to keep a roof over our heads. So we spent a lot of time alone. So I really just want to let you know that it's not the same for everyone. There's the extreme, right? We narcissistic parents, abusive parents, and then there's neglect. Not that I want to lessen that, but it looks differently, is what I'm trying to say. The childhood can look differently, but it creates the same patterns in us. So as a result of this kind of treatment, when we're having our emotions, well, we internalize that. That kind of treatment didn't give me safety inside. So what did I do? As a child, I couldn't do it from within. No child can. So there's that pattern. I'm going to try to stifle me because being me makes you mad. And I need you for survival. So I'm going to stop being me so that I can stay connected and safe. That, by definition, is the fawn trauma response. And as a result, this is a trauma loop. We stay stuck in this. So we get out of one relationship, right? But if we don't learn how to break out of this loop, we go into another one. And especially if we wind up with narcissistic relationships. The beginning, the narcissist is healing your wounds. They're creating safety for you with the love bombing. But then you're in the relationship, right? And then the co-regulation ends and the same pattern takes place. We internalize that more dependence, trying to make the other person happy because we are now replicating the pattern that was set up in childhood and we're doing it unconsciously. If you had asked me, Michelle, is that what you're doing? I would have been like, what, are you crazy? Why would I do that? It's done unconsciously. We don't even realize we're doing it. So the one thing that I really want to stress again is that it's not a personality trait. It's a trauma response. To me, codependency is a symptom. It's a symptom of the fawning trauma response, which is a hybrid response. It's half freeze and half mobilization, right? The freeze is stifle me. There's constriction. How many of us have our bodies like carrying such muscle tension because we're holding ourselves in? And then the other part of us is pushing us to socially engage to make them happy so that we're safe. So that's a trauma response. We are in it. If in childhood, it's like a template that's embedded in our subconscious. We're not choosing consciously to do these behaviors as an adult. So just to show how the pattern in childhood, how it stays alive or comes alive in our adult life. And by the way, in childhood, it was a smart strategy. Like we have to give credit to the amazing way that our brain is created because it came up with a way to help us in such a chaotic environment. We couldn't fight. We were too small. We couldn't flee. Those are our first go-to trauma responses, our fight and flee. We couldn't. So the brain's like, all right, how can I help Michelle to deal with all of this intense emotion that she's too small to deal with? And it came up with this response. So it was doing its job. But now let's talk about how, because it did it so well, how it keeps us stuck accidentally. It's like a well-meaning, well-intentioned friend that's Not given the best advice anymore. But let's talk about how that's done. So, for example, if I was made to feel unworthy or as if I didn't matter unless I was doing something to serve the needs of my caregivers, right? Basically, they were treating me in the belief I don't matter, they matter. Then I might show up in relationships in the same way by putting my own needs last, putting everyone else's needs ahead of my own. And what I'm unconsciously doing is saying unconsciously, I don't matter, you matter. And then when they try to do for me, I might even stop them because it's uncomfortable for me. So just noticing that that's how the pattern in childhood shows up in our adult life. And then we might find ourselves feeling really exploited by people, feeling like we're always doing and others aren't reciprocating and not realizing how this pattern is playing out. Another way it might show up is if I was made to feel bad, like I'm a bad person if I put down a boundary, right? I'm unloving. I don't love the family if I have a boundary. Then I show up in relationships with no boundaries because what happened when I was a kid and I tried to have boundaries, I was abandoned. So there's the fawn response. There's the fear of abandonment. The problem is that when we show up in relationships without boundaries, the same thing happens. We attract unhealthy dynamics or people. And then one last example, if I was made to feel shame when I was just being me, just for being myself, I was made to feel bad or as if there was something wrong with me. I don't feel safe in my own body because I don't feel safe being me because of what it did to the with the relationships in my childhood that mattered so much. And so as a result, we become amazing chameleons. We can shapeshift. We can use our empathic abilities to know what people are thinking and feeling and do everything we can to make them happy, to make them feel okay. Again, it's done unconsciously because we're trying to seek safety.